Hi, my name is Kate Weddle. I am an art director, set designer, and graphic designer in the Art Directors Guild.
Okay, can you just tell us exactly what our director does?
So the head of the art department is a production designer, and they're sort of the ones who come up with the overall concepts of the sets that we're going to be designing and building. And so then what the art director does, they sort of implement those sets. They take all the ideas from the production designer and they coordinate with construction and set dressing, and they're more the managers, I guess would be a good way to put it, where we sort of put everything into motion and make sure that everything is done by the time we need it, and we schedule it, that kind of stuff. So that's mostly what an art director does, is supervising and implementing.
So how did you get into this?
I originally, my background, I'm a graphic designer. I worked in graphic design for print and magazine for a long time. Then I went back to school for 3D animation because I was like, well, I make graphics. I, can make them move. And in my my undergrad, my animation undergrad, there was a teacher who was a production designer, and he sort of took me under his wing and was like, have you ever thought about going into live action? And at that point in time I hadn't. I thought I was going into animation, but once I got the degree I was like, yeah, I'm not an animator. So he's the one who recommended, like, well, you look into this as a potential career. And so I came out to LA. I went to grad school at AFI, and then the Art Directors Guild at the time they were calling it an apprenticeship program. They've since changed the name because it's not technically an apprenticeship program. It was sort of a, I don't know, like trying to get people into the industry through PAing. And so they call it the Production Design Initiative now. And so I was in the first group of people that they did with this new program where, my name was put out there as a potential PA to hire, and I got a job on Scandal, the TV show Scandal. I PA'd for 2 years and learned a lot from the production designer and art director on that show. And then eventually they hired me as an assistant art director. And so that's how I initially got my foot in, was through the Art Directors Guild.
And so what are some of your favorite projects you've worked on thus far?
My most favorite project, hands down, would be the Suicide Squad, the newest James Gunn one. And that was just the confluence of awesome people. The sets were really fun. The work was really fun, but really, honestly, it just came down to awesome people. Beth Mickle, the production designer, is just sunshine in a human body. And she just led the department. And I mean, that's the thing, is that we work 12 to 14-hour days with the same people. Like, you see the people that you work with more than you see, any relationships or children. And so a lot of, like, having a cool experience comes down to working with cool people. Like, you can work on a really amazing show and have an absolutely miserable time because the people that you work with. You can work on a stupid little nothing, like low budget nothing show and have the best time because of the people that you work with. So that's really what it comes down to. But yeah, Suicide Squad was my favorite. I really enjoyed working on WandaVision. Right now I'm working on Yellowstone, and we've got a great department. I'm having a lot of fun out in Montana pretending like I'm a cowgirl and riding a horse for the first time and realizing I am not a cowgirl.
From an art direction perspective, WandaVision must have been a really interesting challenge because you're having to basically restart every episode, right?
Sure, yeah.
So how did those, first of all, how did the television research involved with getting those sort of sets right come together?
So Mark Worthington, the production designer, he was very particular about, the shows. We watched the shows. We had all around the office images from the shows, because how they broke it down was, one show per episode until it got into like the more the real world stuff. So like the sets that I actually worked on were the real world ones, the military base, the lab. So yeah, all of the most of the sets that I worked on, I helped out a little bit. We were split into different groups, like because we had totally different looks and sets. Like there was one art director for like the Bewitched and the Dick Van Dyke set, and one art director for, so we kind of split it up that way. it was a lot of research. It was a lot of referencing. You know, like specifically for the Dick Van Dyke one, because they were going to film that in front of a live studio audience, we had to do a lot of research onto like what kind of seating, like the what's it called, like the stadium seating, the bleachers. Like, I know one of the things they wanted me to research was like what bleachers looked like in the 50s, 60s, whenever the TV show came out. I can't remember, but it was bleachers. They weren't going to be seen on camera. The audience were going to sit on them, but they wanted them to be close to what actually was going to be there for the filming. And you know, like they would film them differently back then. There was no cutting because they were shooting on film. Film was at you know, it was expensive. It was expensive to film. It was expensive to develop. So they had all of the sets kind of like laid out. So where cameras were here, and they would just have to turn the camera, and there's the next set. They were all sort of like connected to each other, and that's what we did. And then, you know, when it came to like the Brady Bunch set, the Brady Bunch had their backyard on a stage, and it looks fake. You know, we could have gone and put in a real backyard and, you know, put in real grass, but we wanted it to be authentic. So we laid down AstroTurf on the stage, and it looked like the Brady Bunch one that looked, you know, when they were out there, that one episode where they were playing like with the football, it looks like AstroTurf on a stage. But that's what they wanted. That's what Mark wanted. He wanted to capture the essence of what actually was. And so like even on like the Malcolm in the Middle set, like we just did a lot of research, because sitcoms, they were all sitcom based, have evolved. You know, we went from like the Dick Van Dyke, you know, I don't know, I can't even remember what they called it, where all the sets were connected, where like Modern Family was like the last one. It was a fully realized set, because that's what Modern Family did. It wasn't shot the same way. So it really just came down to research. It came down to like, Mark did a really great job of organizing, you know, making himself available for questions, which is always a huge thing. Communicating, he's a great communicator. And so, you know, there were hiccups with schedules and stuff like that, and weather. You know, we shot it in Georgia, so it rains there sometimes. So if we were supposed to shoot outside that day on the military base and it rained, it was like, well, the base kind of leaks, because it, you know, the military base, it was what is it called? Like a greenhouse. Like there were these greenhouse systems that we found that we altered for the military base, because they wanted it something to look a little bit different. And it leaked. So it's like, well, we can't shoot in here or whatever. And there was nothing really, like we stopped the leaks as best we could, but you know, it was for greenhouse. They're not meant to be like waterproof. So yeah, so I don't remember what the question was, but I hope that answered it.
Well, and especially when you're contrasting with these really sort of eccentric TV sets,
yeah.
When you're doing stuff like the military base, like the science lab, which I don't know, but my understanding is that in real life they're pretty basic and like not that interesting to look at.
Yeah.
How do you create that on TV where it's somewhat realistic but also interesting and doesn't get totally lost?
A lot of that comes, I know it's conversations that the production designer has with the director and has with the cinematographer about what shots they're going to set up. So I know like in WandaVision, they really wanted that set of her up high, looking down and seeing Vision in pieces on the thing. And so a lot of that was a location that we found in Georgia. And it's actually been in a lot of shows that it looked totally different, because we added like the weird shaped cladding and stuff. So the location played a large part of that, and it was really just knowing what they wanted the shot to be and trying to make it visually interesting and also tell the story. Like the whole thing is that SWORD is, you know, this high-tech, you know, space military branch, and so we didn't want it to just look like, you know, a clean lab. He wanted it to look, the production designer wanted it to look visually interesting and sort of focus down on the fact that Vision was at the bottom of this pit in pieces. He was the brightest thing in the room, so that your eye was automatically drawn to him. But you know, like those panels that we made, they were created by I don't remember the art. I think a set designer did them just real quick, because he's like, I need some texture. But like, one of the other panelists on my show was talking about how on Jurassic Park, they've got that fence with the raptors in it, like the raptor enclosure, and special effects needed to create holes in for some, I think, to do some sort of effect. And they're like, well, how are we going to hide these holes? They need to access them. They literally took like those lunch cartons that you get, like the plastic lunch cartons, opened them up, turned them upside down, stuck them on, and spray painted them. So it just looked like an unusual shape. You didn't know what it was, but it wasn't anything that would draw your eye and be like, what is that? So, I mean, it's really just problem solving sort of on the fly. And as far as like knowing what the shot is and knowing how to get the best shot that they want to tell with the storytelling and helping them.
So that is one of the things you hear about sets, is that nothing is made of the thing it's supposed to be made of. Everything's like masking tape and styrofoam and stuff. What are some of the most creative solutions you've had to implement?
Oh, let me think about that one. I know that there's a lot of like, you hear about the gaff tape, like, oh, we need to just put gaff tape on it. That's to hide stuff. You hide stuff with gaff tape. I don't know if I can think of anything. That's a tough question. The thing is that it's something that's done every day. So it's so commonplace to problem solve in that way that you don't even think about it, really. It's just a matter of like, grab something. We got to throw we got to do this. I can't think of anything specific, unfortunately. Well, I mean, on the one show, one of the lighting riggers accidentally dropped something on the roof of our set and punctured a hole in, and we're just like, what are we gonna do? You can't fix it, you can't patch it, you're gonna see it. And they just put a smoke detector. So it's stuff like that. But I mean, it's so honestly, it's so common, and that's what a lot of the art director's job is going down there and problem solving. And we're like, oh my gosh, this sign, we had these measurements, and for whatever reason the sign is like 5 inches too short. What are we gonna do? And it's like, what do we have? What can we throw up there and to make it look, I mean, really, you're trying not to make it stand out. You just want it to go away. I mean, like, a good set supports the story but doesn't become the story, where you're just like, oh, that's weird. Why, that character totally wouldn't live in that kind of house. Like, I don't see it, So yeah, you wanna support the story, tell the story, but not be the story, unless that is the story. I mean, sometimes, like WandaVision, it was about a lot of it was about the sets.
So in terms of eras or settings or even people to work with, what are some of the projects that you would love to seek out in your career?
So recently I've been doing a lot of television. I really enjoyed working on the feature, but that's not uncommon in the industry, because television, I mean, it's a grind. You're working on, so for a feature, you work 6 months, depending on how big it is. You could work like a couple weeks if a smaller feature to start getting prepped, if it's going to be a lot of locations or whatever. The bigger features, you get like months to prep. And so television, you're basically making a movie every like 18 days, kind of, so, because a lot of it is like 9 days prep, 9 days shoot, and it's fast and it's tough. And I don't know, in the feature world, it just seemed a lot. It could also be that I worked with Beth on the last one, and she just was amazing to work with. So it was, I don't know if all features are that way. I've heard stories about features being just as difficult as television, but from my experience, I would like to go into features. I really like doing, since my background is 3D animation, I really like doing visual effects heavy features. But I think I would also enjoy a small one. A lot of the location work doesn't interest me as much. Like, if you're on a show that you're just looking for locations and supplementing the locations, adding things to locations, painting the walls, whatever, I mean, that's fine. It's I don't know, I just want to work on like the stuff where I get to create worlds. I think that's what I would really like to do.
Okay. And can you just like let us know where to find you on social media?
Sure. Well, my social media is all locked down. My website, kateweddle.com. I have all my social media locked down because I work on shows and stuff. I don't put it out there for people. I'm one of those people that don't have a public social media account. But yeah, kateweddle.com. That's my website. It's got my email address and contact information on it.
Hey, thanks so much.